Hello and welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, National Sales Manager for Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
Rob, we've never done this show live before until the episode we did with the FCICA. And that was our first live episode. And, you know, when you go live, you know, you want to be careful you don't make any mistakes because you're live. I mean, there's a lot of people listening, right? I think we broke the world record for mistakes on a live interview.
Look, I know I'm not supposed to interrupt you anymore, but I don't care for the we broke the record.
Oh, okay. So when I screw up,
yeah,
it's me.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's
I didn't say anything. Let me tell the story, please.
Go ahead.
So we're doing the FCICA thing.
The what?
FCICA?
Yeah. I thought you said SCICA.
No, FCICA. I think I got it right. And the whole time, you know, Wayne and I had to do that one live. So we got together a couple of times and, you know, we were kind of practicing because let's face it, we're movie stars. We're not actors. Okay. So we did some prepping for that. And even a half hour before we go on live, I know Wayne is nervous about me. I could tell. And we practice again. And he's like, I think you got it. That's what Wayne actually said to me. I think you've got it. And I was like, boy, I'm so happy I'm making Wayne happy. I mean, that's really what, you know, my life is all about lately. So they go 3, 2, 1, you know, now the people from FCICA, they get on, they're telling us what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. And then it's 3, 2, 1, the countdown, and boom, Wayne goes into the hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode. He does the whole intro and he's knocking it out of the park. We're live. And what was that woman's name from the FCICA? She was a sweetheart. Christine then does the intro for us.
Well, I heard somebody interrupting me as I'm talking. Like, hold on a minute. And as I'm talking, I'm going, what's going on here? You know, yeah.
So you know what? Maybe they should have been a little bit more. They should have told us a little bit more that the FCICA on their webinar, they like to do their intro and then you do yours. But I just thought it was amazing that 3, 2, 1, you jumped into the on the floor. You completely blew her out of the water. But she was pretty funny too. She just, when you were done and all set, she did the FCICA intro and we all had a good laugh. So I actually thought that was a good way to start the show. But yeah, I definitely think you set a record for screwing up live from New York.
The first time I ever played bingo, I was about maybe a 10 or 11-year-old kid in England. And I was in a big room. I don't know what the circumstance was, but there had to be 30 people in there, all adults, mostly adults. And they're playing bingo, like for money. You know what I mean? Like they have professional bingo players. And I had never played bingo before. So the guy calls out, you know, I-25 or whatever, you know, and I think he was on the second one he called out. And I said, bingo. And I raised my hand and I was like, yeah, because I had that one, right? The whole room was laughing. And then I realized, okay, you got to get all of the numbers.
Nobody really explained.
No.
You know, you just said something that I didn't understand. I didn't realize this. There's professional bingo players.
Oh, believe me when I tell you, there are people that have like multiple bingo things going at the same time and like these professional like stamps to stamp out the numbers and stuff like that. I mean, it's like a whole system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just mean they're really good at it. They're not actual professiontionals, because I think bingo is really kind of like luck, right?
Yeah, but these people take it to a whole nother level. I mean,
okay,
there's a lot writing on it. So that was my first. So maybe I go a little too quick sometimes.
That was awesome. That was
Let's just leave it at that.
The best part though was how worried you were about me.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's, you know what? I think you did it on purpose, just to let me off the hook a little
Yeah,
bit. If something
yeah.
did go, hey, we both messed up. But
There you go.
you know what? I think everybody's gonna like that show because that was live. So that was a good one. That was a lot of fun.
Well, let's
And a
go
lot
ahead.
of great information on that one
Yeah.
too.
And we'll play this one back because I do think there's a lot of good. This can get a lot of people out of trouble. We talk about moisture mitigation, and we definitely do take it deadly serious as contractors, that we should. And I think this podcast kind of talks about moisture mitigation and some of the highlights that we've had over the last several years of doing these podcasts.
Yeah, we did fire safety on that. We did a few.
So maybe some of these episodes will resonate with somebody, and we'll go ahead and give it a listen, Rob. And welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander, National Sales Manager at Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson from Bona Training.
Okay.
Hello, Wayne and Rob. Let me just make a few announcements, if I may.
Sure.
Thanks. Welcome to the FCICA Webinar Series. Thank you for joining us. This webinar will be recorded. The recorded session will be housed on the FCICA Member Center and this educational portal. Mark your calendars for these upcoming webinars. Thursday, January 20 is You Only Get One Back, so treat it well, a safety webinar presented by Tony Borison, risk consultant with Federated Insurance. And on Thursday, January 27, Graham Capolino with Novalis Innovative Flooring will present an educational webinar. Visit FCICA.com to view and register for these events. FCICA's safety book, Start with Safety, is available electronically, free to members, and printed versions are available for $185. The safety book is an essential item to have in your office and on every job site. Purchase it on FCICA's website today. For the Q&A, please enter your questions during the program in the Q&A box. Your questions will be answered at the end of the program. Thank you for joining us for the Best of Wayne and Rob podcast live, a webinar. We are pleased to introduce our presenters, Wayne Highlander, National Sales Managers Adhesives, and Rob Johnson, Tech and Training Field Manager with Bona US. Wayne is a second-generation hardwood floor contractor with over 30 years of experience on job site glue-down installations, from large commercial work to residential. Wayne is an NWFA certified in installation as well as sand and finish, and has been awarded the Vanguard degree, the Ambassador degree, and Advanced Craftsman degree. His background as an installer and flooring company owner gives him a great perspective for finding solutions for the challenge. Rob is a fourth-generation wood floor contractor with over 45 years of wood floor industry experience. Rob is NWFA certified for sand and finish, a certified NWFA installer, and has received the Vanguard degree. So welcome, Wayne and Rob. We're excited to have you. I'm going to turn the controls over to you.
Thank you, Christine. Yes, as I said, Rob and I have a podcast. We work for Bona. The podcast comes out every Wednesday on Spotify or wherever you get your music or podcasts. And we talk about all kinds of industry-related topics. And just went over my background a little bit, but as I listened to Christine, I realized how absolutely old we are, Rob.
It sounded much better when she does it, don't you think?
Yeah.
It definitely sounded better when she did it. But
Yes.
you know what else is great is it didn't take us long to screw things up, did it?
Right out of the chute.
Right out of the chute.
Yeah.
Right. That was less than 2 seconds. We blew it. Absolutely. You know what? We're gonna get a bell for that one.
All right.
Perfect.
So went through my list of accomplishments there, Rob.
Oh, I know, but I think they left one out there, Wayne. Don't you
Really?
think they should have mentioned
The
big
no,
one, the FOY, the NWFA Floor of the Year?
No, we're not. That's not even. We're going to leave that out, Rob. It's not about that. We'll just we'll go on to the next one. Well, I'll be darned. I left it in there, Rob. Yeah, there you go. There's a picture of it. Okay.
How did that find its way in there?
There you go. All right. So Rob, we pretty much heard everything we need to know about you. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. And besides, after my picture, it'll be a letdown, you going through your accomplishments.
That's a scary number though, isn't it? 45 years, 45 years.
A long time. We're going to do just a touch of some of the podcast episodes. We've got well over 100 episodes. And you might think this first one I'm going to start off with, you might say to yourself, well, you know what? I don't know really if this pertains to me. But everywhere Rob goes, and when he does things for the NWFA, and when he's called as a speaker, and all his trainings, he's asked to talk about the fire, the speech that he does. So I'm going to talk a little bit. We'll go a little bit first with the fire episode, Rob.
Well, right away, I tell everybody that the largest high-rise fire that took place in the United States was back in the 90s in the city of Philadelphia. And what caused it was stain rags. And it wasn't a floor guy. It was actually a painter who was just doing some trim work. He left a pile of stain rags, not knowing how dangerous they were. And that's what lit the fire up. That's what started the whole thing. And the way that it works with stain rags is it's a process called oxidation. And when the stain is used, Mother Nature wants to dry that stain, the natural oils in the stain. And you're going to do it one or two ways. You're either going to lay them out and the air is going to get to them and dry them that way, or the oxidation process, which is actually producing oxygen, but that produces heat, and that heat leads to spontaneous combustion. It's one of those things that it's Mother Nature stuff here. It can't not happen. So be very careful with those stain rags.
A lot of people think too, it's January, it's 30 degrees in the building, but it really doesn't matter, does it?
No, we were on a job one day, and my partner looked at me and he goes, "Come here, you got to see this." We looked out the window, and a bag of rubbish that we had put some stain rags in, sitting on top of a snowbank, had caught fire, and it was in the middle of the winter. So it's really not temperature. It's just Mother Nature and the chemical process of oxidation, like I said, leading to spontaneous combustion.
Okay, now, Rob, before we go through the rest of these slides, you've ever, when you're taking Pauline to a movie and you're getting ready to watch the movie, and before the movie comes on, the previews come on?
Yeah, yes.
Well, this is kind of like this. We don't need to do the whole episode, okay? We got 25 slides to go through, so we'll hit them pretty quick.
I love when you beg me to do something and then I get slapped for doing it.
Yeah, there you go. No good deed. Some of the one of the nice things about having the podcast and Rob and I being around forever is we do have access to some of the best minds in this industry. We had an episode with John Namba with claims and inspections. John is a speaker. He's an independent industry consultant. He's an inspector. And you may already know the guy. I mean, if you don't, you can Google him. I mean, he's just a phenomenal wealth of information. And, it's interesting. He talks about the number one cause he sees for inspections nationwide, and which is moisture related. And he talks about using proper testing tools and the protocol on the front side of the job. So especially these large commercial jobs, there's a lot of liability out there. And he also talks about another issue he's seeing a lot of now because it's changing the industry. We've gone to wider and wider plank. That absolutely affects the way that we install, we acclimate, and the other things that we do. And he talks about popping and squeaking floors. So this episode with John Namba on claims and inspection really is a can't miss episode.
The documentation part, how he was explaining that you need to document everything every day: relative humidity, moisture content, temperature of the room. And he said, just in case you end up going to court, and he's had to assist people in court before, him being an inspector, the people who win are the people who have documentation. And the people who sometimes might get jammed up are the guys who are saying, no, I did it right, but they didn't have the correct documentation. So when he got into that documentation thing, I thought that was great. So this is definitely an episode to listen to.
Which ties very nicely into my contract episode.
Oh boy, here we go. My contract episode.
Well, our contract episode. Sorry.
My contract. The Wayne Highlander contract.
This was one of our most probably the most feedback we've had on our podcast. And this is a contract I had when I was a contractor. And for the listeners, I told them you can email me and I'll send you a copy of it. My email address is wayne.highlander@bona.com. It's WAYNE.HIGHLANDER@bona.com. You can feel free to use none of it, some of it, or all of it. Except my name and my contractor's license is still on there. I see I'll take off, but there's a lot of liability out there and you want to make sure you cover yourself. And this was written by an attorney, and another attorney made some changes to it. But I'll tell you why, and I'll just tell you a quick story. That there was a contractor in Northern California that I know well, and he did a job with a nice big commercial building, beautiful job, got paid, everybody's happy. And a year later, he got a call to come back because the floor had cupped all over the place. And he said, well, he did everything right. He documented everything and what have you. So when he met them, sure enough, the floor had cupped quite a bit. But as he began talking to them, he realized really nobody moved into the building. None of the HVAC controls were in place. And so he said, this clearly is not my fault. Well, they took him to court, which he thought, yeah, no problem. I mean, he was very confident going into court, and he lost. And the reason why he lost is because the judge said he had nothing in his contract instructions on how to properly maintain that hardwood floor through the life of its floor. So good episode.
As much as I hate that, this was the Wayne contract episode, the funny part is, even when I'm doing trainings, people will come up to me and go, hey, you're Rob from the podcast. Yeah, nice to meet you. Hey, can you do me a favor and have Wayne send me that contract? They don't want to talk to me. They just want to talk about your contract. But to give you your props, I remember when we did this show and I started to read through some of the bullets. Now, he said a lawyer wrote it, but a lawyer didn't understand what you understood about wood floor. So I know that your fingerprint was on that, especially that one bullet, one part of the contract where you say the homeowner is responsible for keeping proper relative humidity and temperature. And I said, wow, that is brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to take credit for it, but I had very little to do with it. All right. So, we have a CEU episode with Dave Darsh. I'm going to read his title because he gets mad at me if I screw it up. He's the National Market Manager for Adhesives A&D. But Dave is an industry guy, very well spoken. His CEUs are sought out. He always fills up his CEUs and travels the whole country doing this. Fantastic presenter. And one takeaway, I think there's a lot of takeaways from his presentation, but one that I think will surprise people and is that a lot of people don't specify short-term and long-term maintenance on their projects. The number one reason for shortened lifespan of a hardwood floor is improper maintenance. And it's so easy to do and actually critical to do. So it's CEUs. If you look up in the episodes, it's CEUs with Dave Darsh.
If you listen to him talk and you meet him, you'd swear he was a congressman or a senator. You wouldn't think that he's a CEU guy for Bona.
Slip and falls, Rob.
That was another great part of his presentation here, and Bona makes a finish called anti-slip. Bona Traffic HD anti-slip, and this is just a fantastic commercial opportunity too, and commercial spaces to use this product. It meets all the American Disabilities slip coefficient. It does have slip coefficient of 0.8, so that means that it's meets the regulations for handicap ramps. Just a fantastic product. That's one of the best products you'll ever use on stairs.
Good deal. We have an episode with Howard Brickman called the Howard Brickman episode, which addresses acclimation. Howard Brickman is a scientist. He's very well known in the industry. I really think the line starts behind Howard when it comes to understanding hardwood floors. He does a fantastic job talking about acclimation in a way that you'll never hear it from anybody else. And one takeaway from this is that, and I think it's rule number one, really, is that you get the building ready for the flooring, and then you get the flooring ready for the building. And I've actually gone back and listened to this 2 or 3 times, and I've called my brother who's in contracting industry, and I said, man, you got to listen to this episode. This guy's about as close to a genius as you'll ever meet. So
I remember when he started talking about that, and when he was talking about getting the building ready. When he was talking about was getting the building, how is that building going to be when people are in that building? Not just during construction, but I think too many times we acclimate wood during the construction process, where he was trying to tell people, no, you acclimate it for when people are going to be using the space. So I just thought that was brilliant. That really made a ton of sense and completely changed the way that I looked at wood acclimation.
well, and between him and John Nama, what always brings up the point too is that when you do the testing, really it's when you're doing the estimate and when they're actually living in the building and what are the conditions at that point, because they're going to change during construction. And it's at that point when you first took those readings is where it's probably going to live, right? So yeah, super good. Always good to talk to Howard. He's the first guest we ever brought back twice to talk about another topic. Then we have a topic called "You Will Never Think About Adhesives the Same Way Again." And this one is near and dear to my heart because it is often, as a contractor, I kind of fell into this myself, and it comes up a lot where someone will say, for instance, okay, you got 8,000 square feet of flooring, you picked out this, say, 5-inch engineered walnut, it's hand scraped or it's got a ceruse finish on it or what have you, and they go into detail about the wood, but then it's like, all right, well, then you're going to need 38 pails of adhesive. So they sell the adhesive, but they don't really sell the adhesive. There's an opportunity with the Bona adhesives. It's the first and only Green Guard Gold certified adhesive in the industry. And with today, more people are more and more concerned about indoor air quality. And after all, the hardwood floors is probably the biggest space in the building other than the walls. So they have an outsized effect on that indoor air quality. And if you're looking for lead points and what have you, this is a great chance to upsell and really separate yourself from the competition. And, actually this certificate years ago was called, I think it was like certified safe for children, schools, and hospitals, but they changed it to Green Guard Gold certification. So this was a lot of years in the making to get this Green Guard Gold certified, and something we're pretty proud of.
It's something that we talk about in our training schools is what a great upsell opportunity that we've really never had before with other adhesives, where everybody, green is on everybody's mind now. It's the new way of life. And now to have a Green Guard Gold certified product that we're putting under the floor to give you another upsell opportunity is just amazing. That's why I kind of laughed when I thought we were going to do this show. Oh, you'll never look at adhesives the same way again. Well, at the end of the show, I was like, he's right. I'm never looking at it. Now there's an opportunity to make a little money off of this stuff now too.
All right. So I feel kind of bad about this slide right here.
Oh, I know.
Working with designers and architect with Frank Capolino. We had another picture of Frank.
Who changed that picture?
I changed it.
Yeah. Okay. I understand why. You don't
He had
want anybody. You don't want anybody to be prettier than you. That's why you changed that picture.
He had a nice suit on with a flower in the lapel. He was very distinguished looking. He had his arm out, relaxed. He looked beautiful. And
he looked like he was in a scene from Goodfellas.
Yeah.
He looked like he was sitting at the Copa. What a great picture. I can't believe he took that picture out, but I get it.
And
nobody's supposed to be prettier than you on this show.
I know he hates this picture. So here's the thing about Frank Capolino. There are people in this industry that you need to know. When we talk about architects, they have to know a little about a lot of things. When you find a guy that knows a ton about one thing, you've got a pretty valuable asset. And his life has been in New York, working with architects and designers and specifiers, and the tips and techniques and things that he talks about and he got some pretty good, funny stories about his life doing that, and wealth of information. And I said from the beginning, we're very fortunate, Rob and I, to be able to have some of the best minds in the business on the show through our relationships and over time and what have you. So Frank is one of those guys, and if you do any work with designers and architect, this would be a great episode.
You know, you wouldn't know it looking at him. Well, I guess you would at this picture. The other picture you wouldn't know, but this picture you kind of see it. He's president of a motorcycle gang, or not a gang,
The club.
But the good work that gang, no, not a gang. The good work that they do though, for Toys or Tots, is just amazing what he does for the community. So my hat's off to him. That's great that we have people out there like that.
Actually, I think he does the largest Toys for Tots gathering, I think, in the country with the work they do. So anyhow, all right. So then we have a sustainability episode with Todd Waymiller. You know, Bona's responsibility to the environment is embodied in everything we do. We're a 102-year-old company, and if you look at our lineage, and where there's a lot of firsts in a lot of things that we do when it comes to air quality and dust containment and training and those type of things. And this is a really good episode with Todd Waymiller, and I'm going to apologize right off the bat for this. Rob and I got in a fight on this, and we never took it out. And we're like brothers. Sometimes we have disagreements. You can't be in a trade this long and have very definite thoughts and not be at odds with each other at times. And I'm afraid this is one of those times.
I want to know what the fight was about.
Yeah. Well, you were wrong. So if that helps you,
Of course. You know, is there anything more sustainable than wood floors? I was telling my class, I'm doing a training this week in Pittsburgh, and we were talking about the sustainability part and of wood floors and how many times they could be sanded correctly and whatnot. And I told the class that I did a floor that was 180 years old. And then everybody started joining in the conversation of, we had one guy who said that he had done a floor that was 200 years old.
there's a lesson there, Rob. You never go first.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Spriglin, in Washington, D.C., Spriglin with Universal Floors has been in the White House more than any administration. And he's an expert at doing historical work. So you may not do a lot of historical work. Maybe you'll get a job in doing museum work or those type of buildings or historical buildings. And he's got a brilliant mind, and he's made a living doing this. And his tips and techniques and things that he talks about, and the challenges and the hoops you got to go through at times doing this type of work would help you on your estimating process. And it was a pleasure to have Sprig on.
You follow Sprig on Instagram?
I do.
His Instagram posts are got to be some of the best stuff out there for wood floor guys. The projects that he works on and how the last Instagram post that I saw, they were working on taking out and redoing individual boards one at a time. His crafts, they just looked amazing what he was doing. So I just love the stuff that he's putting out on Instagram, because it's always like a history lesson, with places that he's working and all in through Washington, D.C. and everything. But Sprig, if you are listening to the show, I'm still waiting on that hat, buddy. You still owe me a hat.
I thought he gave you a hat. You were wearing it a while back.
He did give me a hat, and it was probably 10 years ago he gave me. It was a great hat. I don't have a lot of hats that fit me well. You can see why.
If there's
I wasn't even allowed to wear a hat on the show. Usually, I got to have it.
If there's a dude that makes a living doing historical work, gives you a hat, I'm pretty sure he thinks you're going to keep it for more than 10 years.
He thought that it was a sustainable hat, right? That would last 180 years.
Yeah.
So Sprig,
Okay.
Send me that hat, bud.
Proper maintenance and recoats. Winter is coming. Rob, go.
Winter is coming, and it's amazing. Right before the show, I got a text from one of our TMs up in Canada who is on a commercial job. And of course, we had the salt footprints once again. Well, what happened a few years back, about 12 years ago, the manufacturers of salt melt products added a chemical to the salt, an anti-clumping agent. And what that anti-clumping does is exactly what it says. Rather than getting big, giant rockfuls of clumped up salt, now it stays, pliable like sand, so you can toss it and move it around. It doesn't clump up anymore. But the issue that we ran into is that product is murder on wood floors or any type of floor. It sticks to everything. Once it gets on your shoes and starts tracking in, one of the best things you can do, it's pretty simple though, is walk-off mats on both sides of doors, especially like we really started to see it in schools. Lots of schools were having tons of ice melt, didn't have the proper walk-off mats and everything, and that stuff just tracks everywhere. And that chemical just kind of attaches itself to the floor, and it's really, it takes a lot of cleaning to get that up off of the floor. So that's what's happened, and that's why we're starting to see a lot of the salt calls.
This episode we'll talk about that and the advantage of doing getting involved in maintenance and recoats, and at least to be able to educate your customers and clients, and also for another revenue stream. It is amazing how much money is in maintenance. If you watch an NBA game, if you watch an NCAA basketball game, there's a very high probability that you're going to see Bona Finish on there. And because there's Bona Finish on there, there's likely Bona cleaning products involved in that. So you probably know Bona for the cleaning side of the business. We excel at that, obviously, and that's a good episode to kind of get you knowledge there.
One of the recoat systems that we do talk about is the guaranteed recoat system, which for commercial applications is great because you have some of these floors, these wire brush floors, hand scrape floors that were really popular there. They're a tough recoat. So we have a system where, you just couldn't do the old fashioned type of screen and coat, where now we have a system that gets down into all of those surfaces that you need to attack individually.
Well, you brought up a good point then. If you're a Bona territory manager, it's like if you see that machine there, the power scrubber, everybody gets a call 3 or 4 times a year that it's a commercial job. Maybe it was a wire brush job and sheetrock dust or whatever got down inside it, and they don't know how to maintain it or get it back out of there. And these machines are fantastic for that. We'll talk about our schools later on, where we kind of teach this whole system, but it should be an informative episode. We talk about the Bona system.
I call this the Bona tripod. And why do I think the Bona tripod is number one, our environmental concerns, number 2, training, and number 3, just the Bona system of products. And the thing that goes with it, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about training, but training is really the key to the whole Bona system, I think. Well, of course, I think that because I'm in training. You would probably think it's adhesives, but
yeah. Well, we talk about sustainability. And Bona also has gone down another avenue that's in this industry that has opened up just a whole nother category for our commercial contractors, and that's renovating LVT and linoleum floors, taking them a floor that's 30 years old and absolutely completely changing it, not having to worry about the removal and asbestos and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely a good episode. I keep saying they're good episodes. I mean, we got over 100 episodes we went to pick these out of, but this one here I think will resonate with a lot of people.
We're starting. We're going to be starting our 4th year of doing this.
Yeah,
we're heading into the 4th year. I thought we were going to be good for maybe 10 episodes.
Yeah, I thought you were going to be good for 10 episodes. I knew that I would be in my 4th year. Unlimited warranties episode. Adhesive is a part of a lot of people's world, and I think this is going to make a lot of people, at least consider this. Are they even achievable? Do they set the contractor up for failure? And I think it's interesting that here we are in 2022, in a few days away, and one of the bane of our industry is moisture. And with all the technology and all the warranties and stuff, having John Nam on and And Howard Rickman will tell you the same thing. That is like the number one problem in our industry. Probably shortly behind that is labor. Probably everybody listening to this a webinar, would double their workforce if they could, if we had the labor. But this is an interesting one here, and we'll go into detail. It'll drill down into adhesives pretty good and talk about the unlimited warranties. All right, Rob. I also chose this picture, and they said you were going to be in this picture, and you are. There's your hand right over here in the corner.
I don't think that's me. I'll tell you why that's not me. There is no way I would be letting a guy work into his cord and hose. No way.
He's going the wrong direction, isn't he?
He's going the right direction, but he's working into the. You got to have that cord and hose behind you. And there's not a lot of room there behind him, but
yeah,
I would have swung it over the other way.
So the training episode, as I said, training is in our DNA, and maybe you're more well equipped, Rob, to talk about this than I am. This is where you live.
I'm so glad you're going to let me talk a little bit. That's awesome. Thank you. There's nobody that invests in training like Bona. I mean, right off the bat, Bona has 12 brick and mortar training centers, our own training centers that we use throughout the United States and Canada. If that doesn't work for you, we bring the training out to local distributorships. We do tons of 2-day, 3-day, even 1-day events at different distributors around the country. If that doesn't work for you, if you have the space, where I am in Pittsburgh is we're at an individual contractor's place. What an amazing place he has here too, to do some training. So we pack up the show and we will bring that show wherever you need to be trained. Nobody invests in training like Bona. We understand that if you're comfortable using the products, everybody's going to make money.
I mentioned labor shortages, and people will say, well, it's tough to get guys away because of labor shortage. And I really think this is such a reason to do training. With the short staff that we have, you want to get the most out of everybody, the best practices, not have to worry about callbacks and get that out of your life. Let them make mistakes, with the adhesives or the sanding or whatever they want to do, the maintenance coats. Let them make the mistakes in our facilities. And we've got, Rob is one of many trainers. We have Mike Dittma. Mike Dittma is when you look at if the floor guys, if there's a deck of cards and there's 4 aces in the deck, he's one of those aces. We've got and D and the whole team is just a phenomenal team. They love what they do, and the schools are fantastic. Okay,
here we go again. How many times are we going to have we should call this the nepotism episode. How many times are we going to have John on?
He is my brother. That's true.
He is your brother, all right.
Yes, but I'll tell you what. I mean, this he talks about stair installations. If you have installers that do a lot of stairs, or maybe they don't do a lot of stairs, if you want an episode to listen to how they can do faster, tighter, and more accurate work, this is a must. Also,
as much as I tease you guys about the nepotism show. There was one point in time during this episode that I was taking notes. And as soon as we got done, I called my partner, Pete, that we used to work there, and he still does a lot of stairs. I said, you got to listen to this episode. This guy has got some of the best ideas I ever heard for installing stairs. The one thing that threw me on this episode, though, was when he kept saying the word door skin. Now, I guess if you're in the West Coast, you know what door skin is. It sounded like he was saying something else to me that rhymed with door skin. I couldn't understand why he kept saying door skin. In the East, we call it luan. Then it kind of made sense to me, but he did throw me for a loop. So I guess anybody in the West Coast, must think I'm a knucklehead not knowing what door skin is.
It's funny how much the industry has changed, where we at one time didn't want to share information between contractors. They would hide what they do, or they weren't very giving. One thing that's you have in common with everybody that we've had on our show, from John Nama, from Howard Brickman, from Dave Dars and now we got Chris Zizza here, that they're so willing to give everything they have to help somebody else out. And the information that we got from Chris Zizza owns CNR Flooring. He's a businessman. He's a philanthropist. He's a speaker. I actually just wrote a cookbook that I believe now he's donating everything to veterans, something to veterans or wounded veterans or something to that effect. This episode was interesting to me because he talked about getting an SBA loan to buy your own building and then be your own landlord and then to raise your rent.
That was brilliant. That was a good one. I had seen Chris at Domatex, and I've known him for a few years. I played golf with him a couple of times and met him at some contractor days. I actually went into his place of business and did some individual training with his guys. And the crazy part is every time I see him, it's like he doesn't know who I am. I have to reintroduce myself. I bet I've met him 5 times. And like I said, the one time we were in a golf cart together for the day. So I kind of thought I was a charming guy until Chris Zizza just absolutely forgets me every single time. I'm shocked. But one of the things that I loved what he did when I went to his seminar down at Domatex in Atlanta a couple of years ago was the garbage bag test. And what the garbage bag test is, and I just thought it was brilliant, was you give your guys a garbage bag. And for 2 weeks, every product that they use, you throw into that garbage bag, whether it's a paintbrush, a piece of sandpaper, a scraper blade, whatever, everything goes into the garbage bag. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he empties it out on the floor and they go through each and every piece and put a price on it. And it was one of the best ways I ever thought to really know what your costs are, what your job site costs are. So I had to give him his props, but hopefully if he hears this, take a look at the picture, Chris. I've met you a bunch of times.
To be honest, I do that to people sometimes as well, but I don't want to talk to them. But
the ones you do that to the people you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
How can you not like me?
Yeah.
Huh? Exactly. How can you not like me?
Listen to the sustainability episode and you'll find out why. So, the thing about Chris, the episode, what we learned from him, and when you're bidding commercial work, there's it's all about the little things on the estimate. That could get you. So by catching everything and knowing what your true costs are, what your real costs are, and going back and figuring out what they are, and then take that to the next job and extrapolate that out. Because leaving out one thing, how it can add up in your costs over time. And if you're still making that same mistake a year down the road or 2 years down the road or 5 years down the road, finding that one angle that you could add more value and add more money to the job is pretty key. So we thought, well, how do you do an episode on the trowel? I mean, the trowel is a $7 tool, right? The trowel, when I was a contractor, scares me to death. To me, it's one of the scariest tools in the business. It's one of the most misused, misunderstood, taken advantage of tool out there. And all a trowel is it's a measuring device. And I'll tell you the reason why it scares me is I saw a trowel, a $7 trowel, stop a $70,000 check one time. Mm-hmm. And using the wrong trowel on a job is a death sentence if you have a problem. It doesn't even matter what else went on. If you use the wrong trowel, it's game over. We talked, about talking with John Namba and what have you. I mean, this is there's a good lesson in this episode.
I love when we start talking about adhesives and laying adhesives at training schools, and guys come. They just can't wait to show off that trowel that they've been using for about 12 years. They come in and they just adore that trowel, and it's just worn down to the nub. So I think one of the best ideas Bona ever did was actually putting 2 trowels in every bucket of adhesive. Whoever came up with that one, that was brilliant. Who did come up with that? Do you know?
Well, it's a team sport here, Rob.
So it was you.
I'm not going to say that. Yes.
All right, so it was an okay idea, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. The moisture mitigation episode. Before I became a contractor, I was in Labor's Union 304 in Hayward, California. And every day I got up, I would place concrete or jackhammer all day. And it wasn't until after I got into the hardwood floor industry did I realize that some of the things we were doing that the flooring contractor would never have known anything that came before them. There's so many there on this. We talk about the different sources of moisture. There's some natural ones and some artificial ones. The scary thing about this is you can't see most any of these. I was at a job site one time 2 weeks before the job started to make sure everybody was on schedule. And there was not one tile saw, but two tile saws in the middle of the building, and water going absolutely everywhere. Had I not gone there that day and checked, I would have never known that, how much water they introduced to that before my job started. We talk about Bona R540 on this episode, which is a solution for moisture on concrete slabs and on wood subfloors.
Let me talk a little bit about the R540. If that wasn't the most eye-opening information I got, and I just can't wait to talk to people about it at the schools, is how it doesn't block the moisture. Blocking moisture is a bad thing, but it allows, the R540 allows the moisture to mitigate through at a very slow process that doesn't disturb the structural integrity of the floor. So I just thought that was an eye-opening one, because I think so many people just think, no, we got to block the moisture, where that can cause a bunch of issues on its own.
We on this episode we talk about how sometimes moisture or job site prep kind of falls into a gray area. The GC might want to pass it on to the flooring contractor, who maybe is not getting as much as he really wants for the job, and it's kind of a gray area. But I always think if we treated crown molding like we treated subfloor prep, and crown molding you can replace pretty easily, hardwood floors is a whole different animal. So this moisture mitigation episode is a lot of information here. All right, Rob. Training centers across the country. We probably have more boots on the ground than anybody. I think all in, we've got about 30 sales reps across the country. I think we have 12 brick and mortar locations for training across the country. We also, as Rob said, we bring it to our contractors a lot of times. We'll have it at our distributors. So how would they get a hold of you for training, Rob?
It's very simple. www.bona.com. And that brings you directly to the sign-up page for our 3-day training schools.
I talked about the regional training centers across the country that we have. We already have a schedule. We're busy this year in 2022 with the training schedules. What we have, some people weren't able to train last year, but the podcast, as I said, we touch on a lot of different topics, and we have fun with it. It's not all business, because I think if it turned into that, it would be I think off-putting. So we realized if you want to hear a bad podcast, listen to our first one. We'd still, I don't know why we didn't just get rid of it. It was so bad. But we do cover a lot of topics in the industry. We have a good time with it. It's a pretty good camaraderie Rob says all the time, it's like a fraternity in the flooring industry. And we have a lot of great guests coming up for the podcast down the road. And so there you go. That's kind of a touch of some of the topics that we had. And I guess from now, if there's any questions out there, we'll take some questions, Christine.
Sure. Great. Thank you so much, Wayne and Rob. If the audience has any questions, please be sure to enter them in the Q&A box to the left of your screen. I think some of these you may have touched on already. One question is, how do I access the podcasts, and where do I find them? So I think you might have mentioned that already, but the question was.
Yeah, sure. And before I forget, Christine, I don't want to forget this. I mean, the platform that the FCICA gives us to do this, and I listen to the other ones as well, the other webinars you have, is phenomenal. The talent that you have that come through here is a asset to the entire industry. And Rob and I appreciate you giving the opportunity to do this. To access the podcast, you can get on Spotify or wherever I think we have a YouTube. It's on YouTube now too. I don't know why they put us on YouTube, Rob. We have a face for TV.
We have a face for radio. We do not have a face for TV.
Yes, but it's on.
And it was funny. I had no idea that we were on YouTube. And my daughter calls me one day and she goes, "Dad, you have got to back off from the camera." I go, "What are you talking about, back off from the camera?" She goes, "I saw you on YouTube and you really sit way too close. You need to, back off." few hundred feet.
So there's how you can get a hold of us. I just do it on Spotify. It comes out every Wednesday, by the way. And you can go back into the past. All the episodes are there.
Great. Next question. Well, you touched on the training already. So if they're interested in training, who do we contact? And is the schedule already set for 2022?
Yes, the schedule is set. I actually got an email. We opened up registrations yesterday. I got an email this morning, and it's not like I'm trying to tell everybody, man, get signed up quick, but you might want to get signed up quick because we opened registrations yesterday. And I got an email today that the New Jersey school in Manalapan, that's one of our bigger facilities, and the Chicago, that's in Palatine, both of those schools are already sold out for the first one. We try to do 2 or 3 schools per each training center. So, but the first ones that are coming up, I think in March, are already sold out. So if you're looking to sign up for our training, like I said before, it's www.bona.com.
We also are opening up a new training facility in Nashville. That's going to be really nice. And Nashville is kind of a destination area now. So a lot of people like to come in. Sometimes they'll bring their wives and stay a couple of days and see the city. Yeah. So, and also we have what we're doing in Nashville is going to be pretty cool. So.
Great, thank you. There's another question here, and it must be relate to part of your conversation. How long do you need to acclimate the flooring? So I'm not sure what that pertains to. So you can address that.
Yep. It's funny, and you hear this a lot in the industry is that, I brought the wood in for a week, so we acclimated it. Or we brought it in for 3 days, so the wood's acclimated. Or we did it for 2 weeks, so it's acclimated. And it's acclimation is not a time thing, it's a science thing. And actually you could have an hour-long podcast or webinar on just acclimation. And the episode with Howard Brickman will go into this in great detail. But you want to make sure that you get the building ready, make sure that's in the living conditions where the occupants are going to be there, and then B, bring in the wood and acclimate it. And there's a chart for every species of wood. And if anybody wants to really dive into this, you can also email me at wayne.highlander@bona.com. I've got some pretty good literature we can throw you away at that. So.
Great. Let's see, we've got one more question here. How do we sign up for a CEU presentation?
Oh, yeah, for CEUs, hang on a second here. Okay, I'll tell you one of the easiest ways to do it. If you go to AEC Daily, that's AEC Daily, and then find the CEUs, and then put in hardwood floor, and ours will come up with Dave Darsh. Again, you can email me, and just like with our training, that you could, Dave does them also for companies. For that, just a particular company will want only their people there. There are times we can do that. Same thing with training. If you have enough guys there that you want to do some adhesive training or what have you, we bring the training to you. So there's opportunities there. Get a hold of us. Like I said, training for us is pretty integral to what we do. So we're usually pretty accommodating.
Well, Wayne and Rob, it doesn't appear that there are any more additional questions. But if there are questions from the audience, you can certainly email them to me and I will forward them to Rob and Wayne. So then on behalf of FCICA, thank you so much, Rob and Wayne, for presenting today's webinar.
Thank you, Christine, and happy holidays to yourself and the FCICA members and the listeners.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
Christine,
Yep.
Thank you so much, because that's the first time it's ever been Rob and Wayne. It's usually Wayne and Rob, but I really appreciate it. I'm going to consider that a nice Christmas gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, thank you, Rob and Wayne.
Well, there you go, Rob. I think we after the first 0.1 second screw up into the show, that was our first live show. But more importantly, I think that we touched on some of the episodes I think will resonate the most with our listeners. and that we think might be of the most use for our listeners. And again, all the podcasts are on YouTube or Spotify, or you can go back to them, whatever, and listen to something that might be of concern to you or for your guys if they're working for you. And so we hope you enjoyed it. And
that was live too. That was our first live one.
yeah,
We should
actually
do some more live stuff.
I would actually like to do more live stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk to that producer. You know her very well, Eileen?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, that was a great New Year's resolution that you had too. I know you're not a resolution guy, but I think that's a good one to just leave her feet alone for
Yeah. I'm
2022.
Yeah. I think
Good.
I've helped her as much
Good.
as I
I'm
can
proud.
help
I'm
her.
proud of you. Good luck
Yeah.
to that.
There you go. All right. That's been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please do stay tuned for another episode.